well for the Russian army invading Ukraine. 2023 has started very badly for Russia. The Ukrainian army is winning very important victories against Russia's invasion attempt. Tanks of the Russian army have been destroyed. The Ukrainian army is getting closer to victory step by step. Anchor News brings you the latest developments on the battlefield. Let's start if you are ready. The war between Russia and Ukraine has been raging around Bakhmut for the last month. There have also been major clashes in the city of Soledar in recent days. The Russian army is doing everything it can to capture these areas, but the Ukrainian army is preventing these operations from succeeding. Ukrainian President Zelensky made a very important statement about the clashes in these regions. There is no such piece of land near these two cities where the invader would not give his life for the crazy ideas of the masters of the Russian regime, Zelensky said. Zelensky also said the following: Bakhmut is resisting against all odds. Even though most of the city has been destroyed by Russian attacks, our fighters are repelling constant attempts at Russian aggression there. Soledar is also holding out, although there is even more destruction there, and it is extremely difficult. Both of these towns are in Donetsk Oblast. The Russian government has been preparing to invade Donetsk for years. There was a lot of propaganda directed at Ukrainian citizens of Russian origin living in Donetsk. However, the Ukrainian people never supported Russia's invasion attempt. The Ukrainian army carried out important operations in these regions. Russia was planning to invade Ukraine and take over the whole country. After the successful resistance of the Ukrainian army, it revised its goals. The Kremlin administration decided to annex Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson regions in Ukraine. However, the Ukrainian government did not recognize this decision and continued its operations. Russia was forced to withdraw from Kherson, but fighting continues in other three regions. It is not a coincidence that the fighting has continued in the Donetsk region in recent days. The Russian army wants to completely dominate Donetsk. The Ukrainian army is determined not to allow this. The Russian army is suffering heavy losses in both of these cities. Many Russian commanders want to withdraw from these cities, but the Putin administration refuses to accept their demands. The Kremlin administration wants to win a victory, because the Russian people are now constantly rebelling. The Russian people are going through hard times because of this war. The Russian economy has been badly damaged by the sanctions imposed on Russia by Western countries. Unemployment and inflation are increasing day by day in Russia. The Russian ruble continues to lose value. All investors in the Russian stock market are suffering a huge economic loss. The Putin administration wants to announce a great victory in the war to get the support of the Russian people. That's why the Russian army is operating with all its might in these two regions, but the Ukrainian army is not allowing Russia to take over these cities. The Russian army has deployed soldiers from the Wagner Group, a mercenary group in these regions. After their defeat in this region, the soldiers of the Wagner Group started to desert from the army. As a result of thousands of mercenaries deserting their units, problems began to arise between the Kremlin administration in Russia and the Wagner Group. Prigozhin, the director of the Wagner Group, is one of the most influential businessmen in Russia. Prigozhin's criticism of the Kremlin has led to a serious fall in Putin's reputation. Prigozhin was expected to lead the country after Putin. Prigozhin's harsh criticism attracted great attention from the Russian public. Millions of Russians think that his criticism is justified. Putin is dealing with a new problem. On the other hand, the Ukrainian army continues to carry out very successful operations in this region. Today, the Ukrainian army challenged Russia. A senior Ukrainian military commander visited Ukrainian soldiers defending the Bakhmut and Soledar region. It is known that Colonel General Alexander Syrskyi made this visit to organize the defense and to give morale to the troops. During his visit, Syrskyi also spoke about the developments in the war. The enemy again made a desperate attempt to attack the city of Soledar from different directions and sent the most professional Wagner units into battle. The Kremlin was angered by the fact that Syrskyi, a senior Ukrainian commander, traveled to the war zone and made a statement. The Kremlin has said that this region was about to fall under the control of the Russian army. But the general's visit to these towns was described in the Russian press as a challenge. Earlier, Russia had claimed that it had achieved complete supremacy in the Kherson region. But then the Russian army fled Kherson. Ukrainian President Zelensky's visit to Kherson caused outrage in Russia. The Ukrainian government is taking very important steps on these issues. The Ukrainian press made important claims on this issue today. According to some experts, Zelensky also wants to visit Bakhmut and Soledar. If Zelensky goes to the conflict zone and shoots a video from there, the course of the war could change. Zelensky surprises the whole world with his communication methods. Zelensky, who has been going to conflict zones since the beginning of the war and sharing very impressive messages for his people, is on the agenda of the whole world. Zelensky has changed all the rules of political science. Ukraine has completely seized the psychological advantage in this war. The Ukrainian people are fully convinced that Russia will lose this war. The Ukrainian army is also highly motivated and is winning the war. But this is not the case in Russia. Russian soldiers know that they will lose this war, and the Russian people are very worried about the course of this war. The support of the Russian people for this war is decreasing day by day. This situation is making Putin's job harder in Russia. Putin knows very well that he cannot win this war without the support of the Russian people. But a significant part of the Russian people continue to oppose this war. There are anti-war protests in dozens of places in Russia, including the Red Square in Moscow. Putin can no longer suppress these protests. Putin has been commissioning fake news that he has won a great victory in this war. But the Ukrainian government is succeeding in exposing this fake news. The Ukrainian authorities made a very important announcement today. The Ukrainian government has denied claims that many Kyiv soldiers were killed in a Russian attack last week in Kramatorsk in eastern Ukraine. The Ukrainian government, which shared images from this region with the public, exposed another Russian lie. The Russian government claimed that Ukrainian soldiers were in a student dormitory, which collapsed completely after the attack. The Ukrainian government, on the other hand, shared images of this dormitory and showed that there was no trace of any attack. The Ukrainian government's statements were repeatedly shared among Russian citizens. The Russian people no longer trust Putin because of these lies. Putin is going through the most difficult days of his political career. What do you think about the Ukrainian army's operations in the cities of Bakhmut and Soledar? How do you think the psychological superiority of the Ukrainian army affects the course of this war? What do you think about the defeat suffered by the Russian army? Do you think that the exposure of Putin's government's lies could lead to increased anger of the Russian people? Share your views with us. Our team puts a lot of effort into preparing these reports. Undercover reporters in the war zone, copywriters, researchers, video editors, and voice actors work long hours to produce these videos. Independent and impartial reporting is crucial to ending wars and exposing the occupiers. To support independent reporting, please use the super thank you button below the video.